This is the luxurious life of the world's richest prisoner, Changpeng Zhao, founder and head of the cryptocurrency giant Binance. You probably know him thanks to it. You can buy bitcoins, and it is one of the most trustworthy wallets in the world. But he was sentenced to 4 months in prison for allowing the blocking of money on the world's largest cryptocurrency market. Zhao now has a fortune of $60 billion, 5 times more than before pleading guilty and being sentenced, along with other millionaires. The platform facilitated more than 1.5 million cryptocurrency transactions worth almost $900 million, violating U.S. sanctions, including operations related to Iran, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other designated terrorist groups. In addition, the company did not prevent transactions between users in sanctioned jurisdictions. Zhao was detained while residing in Dubai, one of the most luxurious cities in the world, but returned to the United States stating that he wanted to cooperate with justice. It was believed that he could be imprisoned in Bastøy prison in Norway, the world's first ecological prison, where prisoners learn to live with the environment, always using renewable energies. They are allowed to sunbathe outdoors, relax by a pool. Prisoners do not stay in cells, but in bungalows. In addition, they have plenty of space to walk, engage in activities such as playing tennis, sunbathing, or fishing. They have outdoor lakes to distract their minds and can freely roam around the entire prison, which more closely resembles a luxury village. For this class of multimillionaires, there are several options, such as the Chamdolon prison in Switzerland. Formerly overcrowded and a scene of various violent episodes, this prison underwent a reform in 2011 and became one of the best prisons in Europe. The cells are triplets and more than a prison. They resemble a university campus. The Ritz-Carlton is considered the most luxurious prison in the world, hosting Saudi Arabian princes. The brand prides itself on owning hotels and luxury resources that provide unforgettable travel experiences in the world's top destinations. Presidents, prime ministers, and royalty stay at the exclusive Ritz-Carlton hotel complex, a true home away from home for the rich. According to media reporters, the city of Riyadh, the Saudi capital, has transformed into a kind of golden prison. Less than 6 months after the visit of US President Donald Trump to the Ritz-Carlton, on his first official trip to Saudi Arabia, where he enjoyed its luxurious facilities, it is now famous Saudi. Personalities who are held in this hotel in a situation of house arrest, presented as detention. Indeed, the hotel is being characterized as the most luxurious prison in the world, amidst an alleged anti-corruption operation in the conservative kingdom. 11 princes, 4 ministers, and dozens of ex-ministers have been detained. Among the detainees was Prince Aluel bin Talal, a multimillionaire with investments in companies like Nabisco and Twitter. Saudi authorities have not confirmed whether the detainees are actually at the Ritz-Carlton, but a Saudi official quoted by the British newspaper stated that Prince Mohammed bin Salman could not have put them in jail. A video released by the American newspaper The New York Times showed one of the sumptuous lounges of the Ritz-Carlton with mattresses on the floor, uniformed men, colorful blankets, and a rifle. Leaning against the wall, the hotel's Salon B, likely the one shown in the video according to multiple sources, usually used as a banquet hall with a capacity for up to 2,000 people, is being unusually occupied. A photo shared by the Al Jazeera presenter from Qatar, Karit Benguana, appears to show the same hotel environment with mattresses on the floor. Since Sunday, police cars have surrounded the hotel complex, and the gates remain closed. Indeed, phone and internet lines have been cut at the hotel. Current guests are instructed to pack their belongings and gather in the Ritz-Carlton's lounges before being transferred to another hotel in the Saudi capital for a fee of $350 per night. However, this window closed quickly. The luxury facility of the hotel empire is temporarily closed for new business. An Arab multimillionaire sultan rented the hotel complex for 2 months, spending $4 million, and stayed with several Playboy models. Another multimillionaire who drew attention was Aileen Stanford, who ended up going to prison. Despite not enjoying any comfort, let alone luxury, she served only 10 years of her 110-year prison sentence. Listed on Forbes in 2009, he was president and chief executive officer of Stanford Financial. He was convicted of tax fraud, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to launder money in commercial transactions totaling more than $7 billion, using certificates of deposit issued by his bank. On a Caribbean island in Antigua, his alleged connections to underworld individuals and his assistance in money laundering through tax havens like Barbados were also mentioned. Considered the second largest Ponzi scheme after Bernie Madoff, Stanford impacted many families in the United States. His scheme promised to double the invested money, but after one payment, he would disappear with the promised amount. This led many people to invest their savings, only to find themselves deceived. Following the story, we have the founder of the Guyon Group, a New York investor. Arrested in 2009 after the FBI found evidence of insider trading for profit, Ranjit Tam was convicted of fraud and conspiracy, receiving an 11-year sentence, accompanied by a fine of $10 million and an order to return $54 million in illicit profits. In July 2019, he obtained early release thanks to a norm signed by Donald Trump, requested by Kim Kardashian, allowing the release of non-violent prisoners over 60 years old. Ranjit Tam, who once managed $7.5 billion in his bank account, dropped off the Billionaires list in 2010. However, according to calculations and tax information, it is said that he still holds a fortune of $1.3 billion to this day. The largest corruption scandal in Hong Kong occurred in 2014, revealing a very controversial corruption scheme that led one of the co-owners of Sun Hung Kai Properties, a company focused on real estate and property investments, with a net worth of $43 billion to appeal. Despite that, this man was sentenced to prison for conspiring and bribing Raphael Hui, the second in government between 2005 and 2007, in exchange for benefits for his conglomerate of companies. The basis of his fortune, the second largest in Asia. He who was once the second richest man on the continent and one of the 100 richest people in the world, had to serve 3 years in prison and was finally released a few months before the start of the pandemic. To this day, it is estimated that his fortune is $2.1 billion, being one of the biggest corruption cases in Asia's history. We move on to the man who was arrested and was the owner of a bank. Internationally known as the king of junk bonds, Macon was a pioneer of high-yield bonds for mergers and corporate acquisitions. These bonds are an alternative to stock dividends, not generating interest or taxes, but requiring payment of interest and capital at maturity. Although their yields were very attractive, they represented a high risk of not being paid to the investor. This put him in collusion with his best friend, Ivan Borsky, resulting in one of the worst cases of financial crime in the history of the United States, as they were implicated in profiting from insider trading and stock price manipulation, which led to the investigation by prosecutor Rudy Giuliani. In 1990, he pleaded guilty to 6 crimes related to the stock market and tax evasion. The other charges were dropped in exchange for his cooperation with the investigation, that is, ratting out his friends. He was also fined $600 million and spent 2 years in prison. He permanently lost the right to work in the securities industry for the rest of his life. In 1998, he had to pay $47 million to the Securities and Exchange Commission due to a derivatives-related case. Currently, he oversees an institute that organizes conferences in Los Angeles and has amassed a fortune of $3.7 billion. It can be said that this man knew how to deceive the system, take advantage, profit from loss. Another case of corruption involving millions occurred in Indonesia. In this case, a woman held important political positions, and through bribes, threats, tax evasion, and illicit enrichment, accumulated an incredibly large fortune, becoming one of the richest people. In her country and on the Asian continent, she became so wealthy that she drew authorities' attention to the origin of her wealth. After an exhaustive investigation, it became evident the corruption scheme that this woman was involved in. However, within her country she was so powerful and had so much money that when she was found guilty in a court and sentenced to 10 years in prison, she financed the construction of a private women's prison. In this prison, which is a corrupt environment, successful inmates can enjoy double beds, refrigerators, and air conditioning. They can spend afternoons and evenings doing karaoke with beer. Furthermore, they have access to a private spa in the prison, while the other inmates are responsible for operating it. On the other hand, those who are less fortunate may face severe punishments and intimidations, being forced to work for the wealthier inmates. The narrative continues with Mikhail Khodorkovsky and Platon Lebedev. In 2006, 2 Russians were on the list of the world's richest people. Both friends spent 10 years in prison after being arrested for tax evasion in 2003. Crimes of this kind are severely punished globally, as they involve taking money from governments and displeasing politicians, who unite to ensure that the law is rigorously enforced to set an example and deter others from making the same mistakes. As part of his sentence, one of the men was sent to a labor camp in southwestern Russia, where he was forced to perform various tasks, regardless of the weather conditions. In December 2013, he was released through a pardon from President Vladimir Putin, while his partner, Lebedev, obtained freedom a month later. Continuing with the story, Jay Lee, although his face and name may not be familiar, is the vice president of Samsung Electronics. Many of us own a cell phone, refrigerator, or washing machine from the Samsung brand. However, this man faced serious problems. With a fortune estimated at $7 billion, he spent approximately 11 months in prison, sentenced for bribery and corruption in South Korea, in a case valued at $38 million related to the merger between Samsung and Chail Industries. This type of businessman is willing to achieve any financial goal, regardless of the cost, trying to play the system for a quick advantage, without relying on political support, which, from a vice president of one of the world's richest companies, promised a significant reward. However, such financial practices were ultimately exposed by the system, and although he denied the accusations, the vice president found himself forced to spend nearly a year in prison. Alfred Taumann passed away in 2015 with a fortune of $3.1 billion and after 9 months in prison for involvement in a conspiracy to fix auction commission rates. The former president of the auction house, Sotheby's Bees, was convicted for breaching anti-monopoly laws by charging fixed fees to sellers in the United States. Despite claiming innocence, he was imprisoned for nearly 9 months. Meanwhile, Courtney Johnson, with a fortune estimated at $4 billion, spent 3 months in prison. This last individual faced very distinct charges from the others mentioned in the video, as there was no tax evasion, bribery, or corruption. His accusation involved repeated cases of sexual assault against his own teenage daughter. After prolonged legal disputes and several hearings, he decided to plead guilty to lesser charges, being sentenced to only 3 months in prison. Additionally, it is believed that he had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to the daughter's family for the charges to be dropped. One of the most luxurious prisons in the world is San Antonio de Margarita in Venezuela, where there are no rules, laws, or police presence. The only thing he cannot do is leave the prison. The high walls with barbed wire and electricity, the surveillance towers, and the prison guards around the perimeter, but not inside the prison, give the impression that it is a highly secure and dangerous facility, but the reality could not be more different. Within its walls, San Antonio is a true party. It's like entering Ibiza, but for convicts, as the prisoners have no authorities watching them or imposing rules. They self-govern. The criminal factions that reside in the prison, sent there for their crimes, are responsible for the operation of the pavilions. Upon entering these facilities, the various recreational activities available turn them into something similar to a resort. Pools, bars, nightclubs, game rooms, and even strippers are part of the environment, allowing prisoners to interact with their children inside the prison. Drug use is tolerated, as well as the possession of weapons and smuggling. Prisoners freely roam the halls and yards, smoking marijuana, using substances, drinking alcohol, dancing and singing, with unlimited intimate visits 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If something displeases them, they are free to harm less influential prisoners. That is why it is extremely important to know who your relatives are, what friends you have, and which criminal leader is supporting you in prison. And we continue with the prison of Eriwali in Scotland, a high-security facility located in the south of the country and under the management of the private company Sodexo Justice Services. Opened in 2008, Eriwali adopts a system in which inmates learn new skills to facilitate their reintegration into society, increasing the chances of finding work quickly. With a capacity for 800 people, the prison is exclusively for men. The cells feature comfortable beds, television, sink, and private bathroom, and are part of the reintegration process into society. Now let's meet Otago, New Zealand. The lives of inmates in the New Zealand prison are marked by luxury and comfort. Each room has a comfortable bed and allows them to have their own television. The prison system of this establishment is based on rehabilitating inmates through sports practice, as well as teaching activities such as agriculture, electricity, and cooking. The prison has 335 beds, libraries, a gym, and large high-definition plasma screens in common areas. This is the Justice Center of Leuven in Austria, considered one of the most modern prisons on the planet, opened in 2005. The glass building, with stainless steel finishes, mainly houses inmates occupying the 15 complexes of the detention space. The area features a gym, basketball court, individual cells with benches, TVs, furniture, sofas, and offices. Can you imagine being in this prison? They say the experience is almost like going on vacation. You will be like a tourist enjoying a stay in a place meant to rehabilitate dangerous criminals to society. Now, without further ado, comment on today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your like and follow the content. See what happens when you touch one of the images you are viewing. Until next time, goodbye, goodbye.